Hi, I'm Alex Maxwell, and I watched Betty White drink pee.
Mi amo T-Bone, la araña discoteca.
And I don't have a joke, but I'm Max Phillips. And today, if you hadn't guessed by those, one fairly niche reference and one fairly obvious reference, we're talking about Community. So I feel like we need to clarify that every episode we do at this point is going to have at least one reference to Community. But
usually,
because of that, we were like, let's make episode 10 the entire thing about Community, and then we can just get all our references out of the way, try and get all our jokes in one go, and then maybe, probably not, but maybe we won't do it again.
Very
that's
doubtful.
not gonna happen.
No.
Yeah. And can we just address 10 episodes? We've done this every week.
That
I
is
know.
10 weeks. 10 weeks
weeks.
of dedication.
2 more weeks, and that's like a whole school term.
And I haven't shaved the entire time, so
Have
I
you
look
actually
like
not?
no.
Wow.
It just looks.
He's been sat
awful.
there waiting for the next one.
Just leave it. Leave
Well,
it. We'll
I've,
do a year of these, and we'll just do like a short GIF of 52
Yeah.
shots.
Nah. It started out in like November when we went into lockdown, and I was like, when I'm back at work, I'll cut it all off again. And it's just been longer than we thought. But I
Still
wanted
not
to
back.
dedicate to the bit, so
Why not? Why
Yeah.
not? So Community, this is going to be a struggle of an episode because it's so fucking funny. And it's so
Yeah.
hard just not to just randomly quote it and hope that you're listening and going, haha, that's...
Yeah.
content.
We'll try and talk more about like the actual, I guess, writing, direction, story of it, more than just us, because I don't think anyone wants to listen to us for an hour just
quote
talking.
it.
Yeah, quoting.
But I do want to get it out of the way, though. So both of you get one line that you just get. You can say it might be your favorite, funniest, or just the first one that comes to your head.
The funniest
What are you
one for
picking?
me is in the mockument, or like the word Arbert's making the documentary and Pierce is in hospital. It's like,
Yeah.
I didn't want a picture. No, I wanted a picture. I can't even remember the line now.
I didn't want to meet him.
I didn't want to meet him. I just
You
wanted a
can't
picture.
disappoint a
You can't
photograph.
disappoint a picture.
One of my favorites, thinking about it, is actually, I had to go to the bank today.
Yeah.
And it's just the
But
dean,
then
like,
he comes back. and
Half
he's
man,
like,
half woman.
the people at the bank loved it.
yeah. The
One of
dean
mine,
is probably the underrated character of
Yeah.
the show.
One
Yeah.
of my favorites. I mean, it's pretty much anything Troy says, I will just say, is my favorite. But I think my favorite joke in it is in season 5 when Hickey and Shirley are being interrogated by the school board about the underground community center that the gang had found, and they're like trying to work out where it was, and then there's this really weird bit where one of the school boards, like, he thinks that he has telekinetic powers that he can mind read, and he's like, he goes into this mind palace thing, and then it's completely wrong. It's like about, he's like, you were on a hang glider and they flew out of here. And then it's just completely wrong, obviously. But then at the end of the episode, Hickey goes to Shirley like, can I tell you something? And she's like, yeah, I was thinking about a hang glider.
That's so fucking dumb.
But I mean, like,
That's the thing,
the,
it does get
yeah.
more ridiculous.
Yeah.
as
Well, I mean,
you
it's
go.
not just that, but like the jokes are just insane a lot of the time. Like, there's a
Yeah.
whole story arc where Troy is joining the air conditioning repair school, and the guy tries to he murders people,
Yeah.
and then they have a thing
yeah.
to see who's like the top air conditioner repairman. They lock themselves in like a
A hot
glass box. And then who can repair it the fastest?
And then to make sure that no one will believe them, they've got something like, what, Black Hitler
Making paninis.
making paninis.
No, it was an astronaut making paninis and
Oh,
Black
yeah.
Hitler.
Yeah, and then
So that if you retold the story.
later on when he's talking to the is it the plumbing the head of plumbing who wants Troy to work for him. He's like, Troy gets upset with him and he's like, I'm gonna make paninis with astronauts and Black Hitler and there's nothing you can do about it. And then he's just like, what?
What's interesting though, kind of seriously, is kind of Troy's story arc and kind of character arc throughout the whole thing. Because I mean, obviously, he remains essentially ridiculous for the whole thing, but as a person, because the gag is kind of he's the dumb jock. That's how it starts. Kind of.
Yeah.
Season 1 in particular, the pilot.
Yeah, the pilot's
it's really
different.
just these archetypes that you're so familiar with, and I think that's probably done on purpose to be like, something I'm comfortable with, and then they fuck you up with it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of taking him from that dumb jock into something with substance. Because I mean, I've been rewatching it again, and it was like it's when Jeff is trying to convince Troy to join the football team again, and he's like, some of your favorite sports stars started off in community college. He's like, give me one. And he's like, who's your favorite football player? And he goes, me. You're right. And it's just like, go on. Yeah, sorry, I don't know where I was going with that, but that's an example of kind of the idiocy. And then by the time, you know, are we doing spoilers?
Yeah, of course
alert.
we are.
Yeah, we're assuming you've watched it. And if you haven't, please do.
Yeah.
By the time he leaves, he's someone that you've gone on so many like adventures with and had these emotional experiences with. And it's such a silly show, but he leaves and like I'm crying.
Oh, what a
But the funny thing is the send off itself is a story arc. Like it comes like full circle because
for two characters.
Yeah, but then for Troy, like, so the my favorite quote of him not being able to talk to LeVar Burton, then goes on a trip around the world.
Yeah.
With LeVar Burton. Like it's silly.
It's okay if you can't talk to me. Oh, it's okay. That was my clone.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because he gets cloned. Yeah. Like
but
that whole episode is heartbreaking.
But in the most community way possible, because it's completely goofy and ridiculous. Like if you think to the scene where Arbed lets go and falls into the lava, there's obviously the whole basis of the episode is the floor is lava, and it's this last big adventure arranged by Arbed for Troy before he leaves, right? And that whole moment of when they're the last two and he lets go and falls like 2 feet into the lava that's just obviously just a concrete floor, and you can just hear Troy in the background going, Arbed, like really emotionally. It's so stupid, but I'm like going, I'm emotional. Like I'm really
my
emotions. My
emotions. That's another reference.
And it's because as Nathan, I was gonna say that would be
notches.
Notches.
Nice. That's the most community thing you could have done, because that's a meta joke. Because it's a tally chart, so it's a tally, but it's notches, which is a community reference. That's so meta.
Notches. Can we just talk about notches? I feel like we've mentioned notches.
Yeah, I'm going to stay on this point though, but go ahead
joke.
and make the notches thing.
Yeah, it's such a throwaway joke, but it's so funny.
It is so dumb. I think it's like, fuck. Who remembers the details of it? Who remembers what each person...
I don't know what they wrote, but it's like Jeff Wingers or something.
Like classic
Wingers.
Singers.
Classic Wingers is what Arbed writes.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another one. I think it's Jeff.
It starts with Jeff. And then it goes to Arbed, and then Troy does like just the notches thing. But that's the thing with Community. There's so many just like throwaway jokes that you don't... You're like, that was really funny. But then it's already moved on to the next thing.
Yeah. And background jokes as well are the same for those, which again, I'm sure we'll come to. Beetlejuice, the Arbed delivering a baby over the course of an episode.
I didn't know about that until like
the whole
my third
season,
rewatch.
The whole season, he's there and like in the background, just like talking to the couple, and then like he's in the background.
Wait, it's the whole season.
Yeah, because the whole season you can see him in the background.
I just thought it was that episode.
It starts with the episode where they give out Greendale condoms and they all turn out to be faulty.
Yeah.
And then you can see those two characters in the background and he throws the condom away. and that's how she gets pregnant.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
I just knew that he was delivering a baby in the background of an episode. I didn't realize that
No,
was
no,
a
no.
running thing
No,
through the
There's
season.
a whole
thing.
storyline, which
Yeah.
is why it comes back to another thing where Arbit, like Troy's like, "Do you just have your own little adventures?" And he's like, "Yeah,
Yep.
sometimes."
But again, and that didn't exist for no reason. That comes later in the season when Arbed has to deliver Shirley's baby, and he's like, "I've done this before," and they're all like, "What?"
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, even now I'm learning new things. Like I've watched the whole thing through like 6 times, I think,
Mm-hmm.
which is that's a lot.
It's a
It's
lot.
a lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
I think I'm on the 7th
but-
time.
I'm going to go back to the point now so we stay on track, because we knew this was the danger of this podcast, that we just end up going on tangents and quotes and stuff.
Yeah.
But that whole episode, as Nathan said, of Troy's last episode, is one big character arc in itself. Because I see it as a character arc for Troy and Arbed. So Troy's is the ending of his story, and Arbed's is the ending of his chapter, and then he carries on. So it's like, because you got that whole emotional moment at the end that's so silly about the foreign enchilada thing. The reason it's so emotional is because at the heart of all of Community, in the midst of all this madness and chaos and stuff, is heart, like the emotional core of the show. And, it's the fact that Arbed's imagination takes over because he can't handle his best friend leaving. That's why the whole thing is even happening. So him letting go physically and metaphorically, it's a piece of really good writing. It's just so chaotic and weird that it's kind of hidden underneath this comedy.
That's the whole thing with Community throughout the whole 6 seasons.
And a movie.
That there is real story being told, whether or not you feel like it's happening. There is always characters being developed, plots being pushed forward, and it's the whole thing with, if you watch any Dan Harmon, if it sketches, TV show, whatever it is that he's made, even in like the D&D podcasty round table thing,
whatever you call it.
Harmon Quest, he is pushing his own character development and giving them flaws, and that's a thing that reflects in Community, that he's constantly thinking about, what's this character doing, why do they do it, and it's, did we talk about it in the comedy episode? I think we did, where
Probably.
the last episode we felt like they weren't being true to the characters,
Yeah.
like the swearing.
I think that was weird, but I do think that last episode works for Jeff really well, because if you think in terms of character arcs, season 1, episode 1, and much of the early seasons, Jeff's primary goal is to leave community college as quickly as he can.
Yeah.
And sleep with Britta.
Yeah. But that's sort of like a side hustle, he's just like a player, you know what I mean? But his primary goal is to get out of community college and get that law degree so he can get back to work straight away. And then the end of season 6 is an episode of him not wanting to let go, and all of his friends move on. So he's trying to find ways that they can all stay, and tries to convince them all to be teachers like he was towards the end, which is just like it's the perfect come full circle for a character. So I do think that last episode is quite good for Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the actual character development, but it just seems like for someone that's so calculating about characters to I mean, my argument for it was that it's like a chaotic kind of thing, the breakup of the group. So I guess maybe you could say that the swearing is out of character because it's a very out of character situation for them all to be in. But I feel like even that's a bit of a stretch. But for the whole show, you never really have a point where I mean, I guess apart from Britta, because she becomes very much of a caricature of the person that she was. But I feel like everyone else kind of stays true to the character. And I guess maybe Britta going down that way is just a slow development of that character just getting more and more ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, I did want to sort of touch on individual characters themselves, because Community is one of those very rare shows that something that's so special about it is how good its cast of characters is, and that's what makes it so, aside from Harmon's writing, is what makes it so good. That cast and the eclectic bunch of characters that come with it. So I thought it would be quite good to just sort of touch on each of them, what we like about them, what we necessarily don't like about them, because I know that we're about to talk about Britta and Alex has some beef with that. But yeah, so we might as well start there.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the wonderful Britta Perry, played by Gillian Jacobs. Alex, go on. I know you're probably chomping at the bit.
Not really. I think Gillian Jacobs nails it. You know, I think she is a great actor, and in particular comedy actor. I've seen her I saw her in that other thing, something to do with Love. I didn't think that show was great, but I thought she was.
Oh, see, I liked
was good
it,
in it. I thought it would be something. You look at it and you think, that's something that Alex would definitely like, because I'm a sucker for like romance and comedies and romance comedies.
Yeah.
It wasn't really my thing. I think it was the leading guy that kind of didn't quite hit for me.
Yeah.
But I think that they did Britta dirty, to be honest, in terms of the show. She kind of starts off as this very headstrong, knows what she's about. The whole thing of like, if you're honest, you're cool with me. If you lie, I don't want anything to do with you. She's constantly lied to, for a start. She's a headstrong activist, is basically the kind of starting point we're at.
Yeah.
And then from there, she does kind of become this caricature, where she's just ripped on constantly and becomes this kind of dumb, ditzy, blonde stereotype, I guess, who's trying to be an activist but failing miserably and works at a bar. And none of the aspects of her life individually are wrong. It's just the fact that they're all collated in this one character, and it just feels like it could have been so much more than it was.
The character that she was in that first episode is very different from where she ends up at the end.
And
that is the case for all of them, but she is definitely the most extreme of those.
Especially
probably he's
Miso
probably the same.
Hungy.
I was gonna go Miso Hungy and just upset you because I know you hate it, but I think it's funny.
Makes me physically unwell.
It's so Gillian
much.
Jacobs though.
But it's not Britta. It shouldn't be. Whether or not
is that the Chaos Theory episode?
Yes.
Where they get pizza, right?
The best episode of Community.
Yeah.
That Alex hates.
I mean, she was.
She
was smoking the devil's lettuce.
I have never seen anyone smoke weed and do that.
That's because
Miso Hungy. That should never have ever been written. It upsets me.
I'm willing to bet that it wasn't written and that was improvised.
Yeah, probably.
Well, should have been cut then. Should have said, Gillian, stop it.
No.
I think it's funny. I think it's funny. I think that it's supposed to be ridiculous and stupid.
I guess.
But again, touching on the they think they're clever but they're not thing. That's every character in Community, as far as I'm concerned. That's the whole point. That like people that think Jeff thinks he's the big lawyer, Troy thinks he's like, well, Troy's a bit different because he thinks the way he thinks he's supposed to think because he's just
Troy thinks he's all that, and maybe he is.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's like it's the whole point is like they think they're all that, but they ended up at community college, right? So they all have these downfalls, and I think that's just Britta's downfall is that she's like, because I don't see her as the sort of archetypal ditzy blonde classic character thing. I do think it's a little different than that because she's not an idiot. Because she is very smart. She's just got, she just Britta's everything. That's the whole point of it. She just misplaces all of her intentions. And And I think it's best summed up in the line with Shirley that everyone always quotes now. That's I can excuse racism, but I draw the line at animal cruelty. And then Shirley's like, you can excuse racism.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, I guess the hard thing with Britta's character, I guess, is because, like Alex said, she does start as what seems like this quite strong character, but then, I mean, I don't know, I haven't watched it like all the way through from season 1 to season 6 in a long time. I like to just jump around and just watch my favorite episodes.
Yeah,
so I guess I haven't seen that character development again since first watching it, so I'm not remembering properly.
Yeah,
but I mean, sorry, I was just going to say, like, that character development was just probably slow, and we're remembering what it is, or we know where she's going. Because we've seen it so many times.
I've been rewatching it recently. Like I said before, like mostly I just jump around and watch my favorite episodes, and then sort of like maybe end up watching like 5 in a row, something like that. But then this last month or so, I've literally just been rewatching it from the start, and I do think she's. I can definitely see Alex's point, but I think she's a good character. I like her.
I think I do think it's funny that her character is like a failed activist. Like, there's always things like she tries to do stuff and it doesn't work, or she hasn't done stuff in the past that she wanted to. I think it makes for an interesting character. She goes from what I guess on the surface seems like quite a headstrong character, but then I guess through her character development, it's revealed that she isn't. So I mean, maybe it's just thinking that these are her traits and this is what she's like, but actually when you actually dive deeper into the surface and get further down into this character, it turns out that she's actually quite weak-willed. She doesn't actually do a lot of the stuff that she says she believes in, which I do think makes her quite funny parts of the show, where she's she's trying to do something, was it like the model UN or something, where she locks herself in a cage, like those kind of things, where it seems like these really big things, but it's just really stupid in the grand scheme of things,
with her and Chang, like the activist versus the cop. It's the Britta versus the community college security guy.
Yeah. It's the same episode where when they're doing the UN thing and Troy's doing Georgia, the country, and he's like, Georgia requests if we can do accents, and then Jeff's like, you're Georgia the country, not Georgia the state. I can't remember what he says, but it's something along the lines of like
mind your P's and Q's.
Well, yeah, that's how it ends. But it starts with like him going, former member of the Soviet Union, we kindly request you mind your P's and Q's.
It is bizarre. It is bizarre. I'm trying to think of other Brita moments where we kind of see that change. I mean, obviously we kind of have the exposition episodes, like in particular when Abed has done everyone's origin story. And we kind of see more and more of her stuff. There's also Chang. No, there's the theater. When they're in the theater, they go to see a show.
Yeah.
The one where Chang thinks he's seen a theater full of ghosts. That one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot about that episode.
But in that, she kind of bumps into her old activist friends, etc.,
who turn out to be awful.
Yeah, they suck. But we kind of see those moments where she's like, "We did so much," and then there's also the protest that Annie and Shirley start doing, because through Britta they're like, "Ooh, activism, we should do that," and then Britta gets mad because they're not doing it right.
Yeah, I think. And we'll move on from Britta in a second because we've spent a lot of time on her, but I think it's because she's a divisive character. But I've always seen it as like she thinks that she needs to be this something more, this activist, this important person for change, when really at the end of it she just realizes that it's the little things and the people in her life that matter to her, and she doesn't need to pretend to be something more than she is. And that's what I quite like. I think she does find herself by the end of it. They tie up every character quite nicely, with the exception kind of Pierce, who I wanted to get onto. The problem with Pierce is we can't really joke about much of the things he says without context, because it'll just sound like we're just being ridiculously offensive.
We can talk about sperm.
About what?
Sperm.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said burn.
Canisters. No, it's canisters of sperm.
I thought you meant the bit where he said, "I'm hyper-virile," or something. It's like it goes straight through the egg.
But Pierce is kind of, again, that starting off archetype of racist, dithery old man who's not quite with the times.
My third wife was biracial.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. He has his own progression.
He does, yeah. The only reason that he doesn't wrap up as nicely as the other ones is because he left so abruptly. But they do wrap him up. yeah, it's Chevy.
Left by
It's, I think, a mix of both.
Yeah.
Well, I think they had him and Dan Harmon famously, famously for people in the community sphere, did not get on very well. And I think it's because Chevy Chase didn't like his character. He didn't like the fact that he was that archetypal grumpy old man who's a bit of a racist, and people didn't really like.
From the behind the scenes stories, Chevy Chase is kind of that archetypal sort of racist.
Well intentioned racist homophobe. No, he is. He's never like nasty racist, is he? He's just like an old man that doesn't get it.
No.
Yeah.
All racism's nasty.
Yeah, we can't speak. Yeah, of course. No, of course it is. But you know what I mean.
Yeah, there's different ways, I guess. It's from the stories I've heard of Chevy Chase. It's kind of like, I can't even think of particular ones, but Donald Glover even has talked about the times.
Yeah.
It's kind of that thing where you're in a situation and you kind of just go, yeah.
Yeah.
That was offensive.
It's because he's been Chevy Chase his entire life, you know, like ever since he's been probably about 25 when he started working for the Lampoon, and when they did really well, he was like the face of the National Lampoon, and then became the star of Saturday Night Live, and then subsequently, you know, the star of so many massive movies, and then since then has just lived on that being Chevy Chase thing of, you know, I can do no wrong, I'm fucking Chevy Chase. And then
Turns
I think
out, yes, you can.
that's why there's so many older people in Hollywood that keep recently are just getting called up on stuff like Dustin Hoffman and stuff, because it's like they just have this idea that they don't think they can do anything wrong.
And to an extent, it's generational, but that it's an explanation. It's not an excuse. You know,
I would
it
say
explains why they're like that, but you can't excuse it. It's like, okay, well, you're older. You come from a different generation. You have the same capability to learn and adapt.
And they've always been excused because of their privilege.
Yeah,
I would say Chevy Chase isn't like the only perpetrator, because from behind the scenes, Dan Harmon is also extremely difficult to work with, and I can see the two of them being very head to head. I mean, there was one where, like, once a thing where Chevy Chase had left Dan Harmon a voicemail, like berating him, so he played
that was
it.
The big thing
at some like ceremony,
or
like he was on stage,
the rap party,
and he played this thing to everyone. So
that was the other. No. That's sorry. I've done a lot of reading into this particular situation.
Okay.
Oh, see, I was fairly sure that what had happened was he'd left him a voicemail berating him, and then Dan Harmon played that at the rap party.
That's the story.
Or was it he'd said something?
He'd
Said something at the rap party, so he left him a voicemail, and then Dan Harmon played the voicemail on Harmontown.
It was that. So
right.
it's kind of Dan Harmon is a genius, and Dan Harmon's work is something to be revered. But Dan Harmon himself, which he would, if you've watched Harmontown, would probably admit,
Definitely.
he is not necessarily a person to be revered.
He's a problematic fave, as they say.
Yeah. Basically, the situation is they didn't have a great working relationship in the first place. And whether or not it was because he was tired or because he didn't find it funny, Chevy Chase refused to film a tag at the end of the episode, but it was the last day of shooting, and they had a particular time frame that they could get this in. Chevy walked off set, and Dan Harmon was absolutely furious at this because this tag was meant to wrap up something. It was the episode where Pierce and the gang have to play that like 8-bit game.
Yeah,
his brother had made. There was meant to be this like really quite emotional tag that tied everything up for the end of the season, or something like that. But Chevy walked off. He left, and the set came down, and there was no reshoots. There was no ability to reshoot this before it went out. And Dan Harmon was furious. And then at the wrap party, in front of Chevy Chase's family, himself, and he got most of the people in the room to basically chant that Chevy Chase was a dick. Which isn't great. It was something like that. I think it was like Chevy's a dick or something similar.
Which isn't untrue, you just don't do it in front of his family.
Yeah, you take him to one side and say, dude, you're being a dick. You fucked up my show.
Mm-hmm.
But no, he publicly embarrassed him in front of his family, at which point Chevy Chase essentially called his boss and called him like a fat, lazy, unfunny writer. It's really bizarre to listen to it. It's like some of it's complimentary and some of it's really not. He's like, some of the stuff you write is funny, and it's like, okay. And then Dan Harmon played that publicly later on down the line.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, that's kind of the thing with Dan Harmon is that if you know anything about him, I mean, he's had trouble with numerous different women, which he has apologized for. He doesn't learn on these things. So like,
what's he done?
I think it was it Rick and Morty, a writer?
Community.
Was it Community? Right.
Yeah, Megan, can't remember his surname. That I don't think we should talk about this.
No, I wasn't going to go to it. I wasn't going to go into it.
Because it's like a Me Too thing.
He's had problems with his character, basically. And it's what you're saying, he's not the person. Like, people seem to really, it's the same with like Rick and Morty. People are saying like they really sympathize with, not sympathize, but like they see themselves in the character of Rick, which is essentially Dan Harmon,
not good,
personified
Rick
in
is
some
Dan
ways.
Harmon, essentially.
In the same way that Jeff is, he's talked about that, where a lot of the characters are like his own flaws that he writes about, because obviously as a writer, that's what you kind of pull from. You pull from experience. And these aren't characters to be revered. So like, take Jeff, for example. He does learn by the end that what he used to do, or the way he used to act, was wrong. And he might be like this cool guy at the start and end. You know, he still has that reputation, but if you look at him in episode 1 or like season 1, you're like, this is a cool character. Yeah. He's an asshole.
He sucks big time.
Yeah.
So that was the
hang on.
That was an explanation.
Pause again.
Really?
Sorry, good job. I was starting a new point.
Really?
I know.
Twice.
Sorry, I left, then Nathan left. It was a whole thing.
We had a whole bunch of technical issues. Not on my end. I was here and healthy the whole time and a professional. But these two, not so much. So we were talking about Pierce, and we're about to sort of round off his character, and the reason that it all went sort of downhill with him and why his arc didn't wrap up so well was because of the complicated relationships that he had on set, which meant that they had to finish off his character in an episode he wasn't in, sort of a posthumous episode with the very good episode they did the table read on, which was the sperm capsule. Here's your sperm episode.
Your obligatory sperm.
Which, if you haven't watched the table read and you have seen Community, by the way, you have to watch it, at least just for Pedro Pascal's just sight reading of those lines. It's amazing.
So funny.
But
funny.
yeah, so the problem with Pierce, as we were saying, was that half of his jokes you can't really say out of context because they're just awful, but they're funny because of who he is. And as much as he had a complicated relationship with people on set, I'm sure that there was positive relationships in there as well. He was on the show for about 3-4 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
So it can't have all been bad. And I know that Joel McHale talks a lot about Chevy Chase and how he liked him, even if he was a complicated character. But that's quite interesting to me, because if we're going to move on to Jeff now, I think Joel amazing. I think Joel McHale is amazing in this, but I don't like him in anything else, really. He was good in A Futile and Stupid Gesture, that movie they made about the National Lampoon on Netflix. That's really good. But in that, he plays Chevy, So you can kind of get why he was good at it, because he just plays Chevy Chase.
You should watch it. It is really good.
It's really good.
That is very funny.
Yeah.
I suppose if anyone's gonna know him.
Exactly, right? So they must have had a good working relationship for him to get to know him that well, and I know that he spoke to him before making the movie. So, but yeah, Joel McHale, really good in this, but not so much my bag in other things. Do you agree?
Yeah, I watched that show.
Much.
Have you not seen that show that he made?
Yeah, basically equals 3, but for Netflix.
Yes. Yeah.
That format that is dead.
Yeah. I think they were about 8 years too late on that.
Yeah.
But it was based on a show he'd already done, though, right? He'd already been doing a show on E or something like that.
Really?
For years and years. That was exactly the same thing. And then they went, we'll pick it up for Netflix, but change the name.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that good.
That's a shame. It's weird that it's still a thing.
Well, it's not still going.
It's just funny videos. It's just like...
It's equals 3.
It is equals 3.
You hit the nail on the head.
Celebrity guest.
Yeah. Half of which are just his old Community mates.
Yeah. It's very bizarre that was ever picked up.
And now he does the Darkest Timeline podcast with Ken Jeong.
Yeah. I haven't listened to a lot of it. I think, is that how the table read came around?
Yeah. I think
it was probably because they did things related with it, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, because they had people coming on and they realized that obviously it was like a popular thing, which is weird because I know that like there's quite a few like celebrity friends who have done like TV shows. They did podcasts together and like, we didn't expect this to be so popular. And it's like, you're on an extremely popular TV show.
Yeah.
That people keep like Scrubs, like Zach Braff and Donald Faison doing their podcast. And you're
doctors, real friends. Or fake doctors, real friends.
Fake doctors, real friends, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, you didn't expect this to be popular. It's one of the most popular TV shows.
Yeah.
And all the cast of The Office in the US are trying to do spin-off-y stuff and like selling knockoff merch.
Well, is it Jenna Fisher and the lady who plays Angela? They've been doing podcasts for years, like for ages. They're probably the earliest ones that I know of.
The guy that plays Stanley, I can't remember his name. He has a thing.
He does cameos.
Yeah, he has a thing on his Patreon that he's set up. That he's written a whole series of a Stan Lee spin-off, and he wants it to get funded on Patreon. And you can watch it as well. You can watch a pilot that they made, and it's really bad.
Is it bad?
Yes, it's so bad.
What would it be about?
It's him when he's moved down to Miami.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Is it like Joey after they did Friends?
Oh.
Yeah. But imagine that, but it's not with a main character. It's just like he's not a background character, but he's not one of the main cast, you know.
No.
But yeah,
what about Daryl after he moved to Philly? That I could do.
Yeah.
But not Stanley.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? But Community, as much as they have the podcast, I think they all knew that they were on something special, and then when they ended it, that was it. You know, there's always going to be
picked up again.
There's always going to be the and a movie thing.
Yeah.
But I think they'd know they wouldn't beat a dead horse, that gang of people, because they're all very talented individuals. Do you think they would?
I think they'll do a movie.
I think that wasn't what I meant. I meant they wouldn't do what the cast of The Office are doing now.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Because they've all had like separate careers. Like, I mean,
yeah.
The entire main cast have gone on to do more work.
Like Shirley, what's her name? Yvonne.
Nicole Brown.
Yeah.
Yvette.
I mean, she had a career kind of similar to Chevy, had a pretty decent career prior. A lot of people recognize her from Nickelodeon's Drake and Josh.
Yeah.
That's where I knew her from. I was like, hey, it's the lady from Drake and Josh.
I never really watched enough Drake and Josh to know her from it.
Yeah. She was great. And she's done other bits. What are we thinking? I haven't seen Danny Pudi in a lot. He's done like more kind of.
He's on DuckTales,
stuff.
Larry.
He's on DuckTales, Larry. Yeah.
He is on DuckTales. It's so funny watching that. Watching that is like watching Abed in the episode where he pretends to be like a regular guy.
Yeah.
The dinner with
Which is
with
probably
Abed.
just Danny Pudi just being himself.
But he was like, I'm on DuckTales.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is so strange. But he did a few kind of shorts, like short films that he put on his Instagram that were kind of bizarre, but really interesting, like really quite good. I can kind of see him going down the kind of art film festival route, which is actually quite suitable to Abed.
Yes.
His character, which is interesting.
I love Abed.
Troy, Donald Glover, Childish Gambino.
He's doing all right, isn't he?
He's doing okay.
He's doing things.
You know, hit albums, concept albums, hit TV shows like Atlanta, which you should watch if you haven't because it's amazing.
Films with Rihanna.
Yeah.
Films with Rihanna.
Movies.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's just been cast as something else, I believe, but I can't think of what it is.
Star Wars as well. We missed that one.
He has been cast as Star Wars.
But you know, it doesn't need us three guys to talk about Donald Glover and how good Donald Glover is, because we have done that in the past, and I'm sure we will.
Yeah.
Can we do it again, Pops? Please.
But it's well documented at this point that he's done pretty well.
Okay.
But someone who has done well as well, which is like not a surprise but really good, is Alison Brie is doing bits at the minute.
Yeah.
She's kind of hot property in terms of comedy actors.
Yeah. She's been doing some serious stuff though as well.
Yeah, she was in that Horse Girl film. That was pretty good.
Haven't seen it, but I've heard it's
a weird
good.
one. Yes, it's like a weird role for her, but it's really good.
Is it like a thriller drama?
It's sort of like a. I don't really know how to describe it. It's like watching a psychological breakdown in a person on screen.
I do that every day. In the mirror.
In the mirror. But she, I suppose it'll tie us into Annie, who is next in my list of people to talk about. I think she might be my favourite character in Community, because I love Troy more than anything. He's my favourite character in anything, like the history of anything. So in my head, he transcends Community now whenever I watch it. I mean, he is obviously my favourite character, but if we're going to do the exception of him, because if we were all just talking about our favourite characters, we'd all just go as Troy. I love Annie. She's so ridiculous and funny. When she's doing the loosey goose.
I think that's the funny.
She's multifaceted, definitely.
Well, the thing about her character is, and I guess they kind of all have their own personalities like this, but she's kind of that what you would take from like Dan Harmon, because obviously he's writing each of these characters kind of as a part of himself. That's kind of like the anxious, overthinking, planning out kind of character.
Obsessive.
And obviously, yeah, and those kind of it's weird because they're all kind of caricatures. All of these characters have become these over heightened versions of themselves.
Yeah.
But Annie is an interesting character because she is so bizarre. Like the whole of her, like her origin story is that she was on like a bunch of drugs.
Pills.
She was hooked on Adderall.
Yeah, and that party where she knows Troy from, where he did like the keg flip, she runs through the glass door and like jumps over a fence. And you're like, it's ridiculous. The whole character is ridiculous. But then, like we said before, with like all the other characters, they get rounded off in this very serious and emotional way, and they do have full character development for a comedy, which is quite rare.
The FBI, doesn't she?
Yes. Yeah. No. She moves or is moving.
Goes to Quantico.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And but that suits her as well.
That's what I was gonna say. It's when you described that backstory, then I was like, it's so weird because that's just not her character at the end at all.
No.
Yeah.
In a good way as well.
Because she starts off as what I believe is meant to be like a 17-year-old girl.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that, 17, 18.
And he's pretty young. We try not to sexualize her.
Yeah, exactly. And then kind of you're there for 4 years. She's kind of in her early 20s now. And I suppose from our point of view, obviously, you know, we're not women. We're not young women, so we don't quite connect in the exact same way that perhaps a young woman would. But in terms of our ages, we kind of grow up with Annie.
Yeah.
And with the rest of them, they're all very... Other than Troy is her age, but kind of stays that keeps that kind of childlikeness.
I can see Nathan smirking, and I just know he wants to make the joke that I want to make.
Yeah. It's very childish.
Childish.
Fuck's sake. Yes, childish. Abed, I think, is a little bit older, but still roughly their age, but kind of using your word, kind of transcends age.
I feel like there was a cut joke where it was revealed Abed was like 40 years old or something.
I've seen that.
Me. And then the rest of them are adults, and they're kind of set in their ways, and although they grow and have character arcs, kind of it's kind of more accessible with Annie because of how old she is. She kind of grows up, and we get to see that, and it's very clear by the comparison from the beginning and the end.
Her age is very, very prominent in the story, as
especially
whether
with Jeff.
Whether it's in relationships or whether it's like her actually just maturing as a character,
and trying to grow up too soon.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
But one of the things that I really like about her is probably just how good Alison Brie is. I think she might be the best joke teller in the show.
I think.
I think so. Again, it's between her and Donald Glover in terms of just nailing a joke.
What about
so
Jim
well?
Rash?
Oh, that's a good point. That is a good point.
The Dean he's not part of the seven.
Yeah.
But he's just so good.
Like
those kind of key moments, those highlighted funny moments you kind of think back on and you think, huh.
Well, we can move on to the Dean.
The Dean, I think the Dean is worth talking about.
Absolutely. He's one of my faves. Imagine Community without Jim Rash.
Yeah, absolutely. There is the seven around the table, the study group. And then I think the two most notable
Yeah.
are
Starburns.
the Dean
Owen Wilson.
and Chang.
Jack Black.
Yeah. I forgot Owen Wilson was in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very briefly.
The Dean and
I'd say
Chang.
the Dean and Chang.
Yeah.
The Dean and Chang.
For sure.
I mean, later on, there's more. There's like Frankie comes into it.
Hickey.
Yeah,
Hickey.
I think they were replacements for
Yeah.
cast that left.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to continue your point
So
then.
did I.
No.
Right. Okay.
So the Dean.
Yeah, I can do it.
Go for it.
So, what would you say? Because he's famous for his sort of running Dean jokes.
Yeah.
He does them in almost every episode. What's each of your favourite ones of his?
Oh no. I can't think of any.
Where he says Dean in something.
Or just one of
Or
his
just-
intros.
My
like when he
favorite.
comes
I think
in.
my favorite thing
Yeah.
of the Dean is when it has like wherever those Dalmatians come up, and he's like, "I hope this doesn't awaken something in me."
Yeah.
And then throughout like the rest of the thing, there's like Dalmatians like pictures of them framed in his office, or like he gets like those they're like the costume people to like come at the dance, and it like they walk through and he's like, "Oh no, those are for me," and like runs off with them.
I think
Alex?
my favorite moment is possibly
Gotta be.
even his shadow.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. It wasn't what I thought you were going to say, but that is a good one.
It was
That's a
the
good
peanut
one, yeah.
brittle bar
Yeah.
is probably the best
Mm-hmm.
the best Dean Pelton moment. And I wish I knew the rap. Because it starts off like about like your paycheck will come on another day, another dime, another dollar. And it goes into this like really political rap. At which point
While
at
he's
the end,
dressed
he's
as
like,
a peanut.
Yeah.
while he's dressed as a big peanut bar. And at the end he like drops the microphone, he's like, I don't know what that was. I don't know what that was. And it's just insane.
I love it. I love it so much. I
It's
reckon
got
my
just a
favorite
character
one is
there.
But it's
We-
like Jim
we
Rash
can.
playing
Yeah.
that just makes it so good. Like and it's I don't think if anyone else was given that probably wouldn't have even come up if it was anyone else, because Jim Rash can just pull that off so well
Yeah.
Did he win an Emmy for Community?
for writing. A different thing as a film.
Oh,
He
was it
won
for
an
writing?
Oscar.
Oh no, it's an Oscar.
for
Yeah.
writing The Descendants.
He also, I think he won an Emmy.
You
For
may well have
something.
done.
I think it might have been Community.
I feel like I
you
remember
know.
seeing it in the Darkest Timeline podcast, because he'd always just like
Yeah.
bring it out. So I think he did
Yeah.
win it for something. I don't know if it was Community or not.
My
No, it's for a
favorite
thing
Dean
called the
Pelton
Writers'
moment.
Room.
What?
Oh.
What?
Primetime Emmy Award. He was nominated for it. Outstanding Informational Series or Special, The Writers' Room.
Wow, Nathan, you never said you worked with him.
It's an
Ah.
action comedy. What do they mean?
I don't know. I don't know. But yeah. I think
Well,
that's pretty
I'm
cool.
gonna go back to mine now, because one of my favorite Dean Pelton moments. There's so many, but I really love like the. It's not even him that sets it up, but that's what makes it so good. It's when they do Blanket Forts 2. Just before it, either Annie or Britta says something like, "I bet no one wants to spend another hour with two men under blankets," and Dean walks in and just goes, "Hi."
There is also Gay Dean,
Yeah.
Oh,
Gay
yeah.
Dean, Gay Dean, which is kind of because Dean Pelton is kind of a very flamboyant character throughout, but his sexuality is never really overtly
Yeah.
spoken about.
Hmm.
It's just kind of there. And the school board basically ask him to be their kind of token gay dean. And he's like, that doesn't even begin to, because they're like, you're gay, right? And he's like, that doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of what I am. And I mean, it's quite a poignant episode underneath all the comedy,
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
but that is kind of on its own a very funny episode.
and
Yeah.
his
Very ridiculous song.
his fake partner as well. The back and forth that they have,
Oh
of
yeah,
like him just keeping him in line.
it's like give me some space. Let me breathe.
Yeah,
Diego.
you're breathing down my neck.
But yeah,
But yeah, the again, like I said before, like Jim Rash playing that character, all of these things, like all of these moments, I don't think would have either they could have been written in, but I don't think that they would have come across the same way if it was anyone else. And again,
Yeah.
I don't think they would have made it into the show. Like they wouldn't have written the character in the way that they did, because obviously when you're writing something like a sitcom, you're obviously writing for the actor as well, because you know what their comedic timing is, what they're what they're going to be, the way they can deliver lines, that kind of thing. I mean, in Donald Glover's case, they would just write Donald says something funny here. You don't have to write anything.
yeah.
But in the case of Jim Rash, it's just like I can't think of any other actor who would have played the Dean just as well as he did.
And for those of you who aren't familiar with Jim Rash's work, he's the man in Friends when Rachel is on the plane.
Yes.
Who freaks out about the lack of phalange. That is Jim
God,
Rash.
it doesn't even have a
Every
left
time I
phalange.
see that episode, I'm like, it just takes me out of it. Because I'm
Yeah.
like, it's the Dean.
Well, it's funny because like I had seen all of Friends and then I watched Community ages afterwards. So I never made that connection. And then I think it was just Comedy Central was on one day and that episode was on. I was
same.
like, the Dean? Dean dong. It's the Dean. Who's next? Who's next up on the roster?
Arbed.
Arbed.
Arbed Nadir, played
The
by
other side of
wonderful Danny
Troy and
Pudi.
Arbed in the morning.
Nights.
Well, Arbed is, I mean, it's addressed. He's Mr. Fourth Wall.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We've had a debate about breaking the fourth wall, in which I've kind of been the person saying it's overdone.
Mhm.
But this is done amazingly.
Yeah, there's overdoing it, and then there's overdoing it, but doing it well.
Yeah.
The problem
Which is what
is
this
that
is.
a lot of writers seem to think that breaking the fourth wall is when you look and address the camera. It's like jimming the camera, or it's like addressing that there's a camera there, or something, like a joke like that, where you are directly saying that you're in a TV show, basically. But what Arbed's character does is it's not so much about addressing the fact that they're in a TV show. His character is all about relating TV to life, which in itself isn't breaking the fourth wall technically, but the things that he says and the way that he says it and the way that he makes these jokes, which are jokes on screen, not jokes in the life of Arbed, break the fourth wall.
Yeah. And it's usually the people around him that really do the breaking of the fourth wall. He'll say something.
Yeah.
Because Arbed's character has Asperger's, or that's kind of the indication. It's said a couple of times throughout, or hinted at. And it's like he perceives life through the lens of a TV show, because that's what he's kind of grown up with and knows. And so like, it's like, is this a bottle episode? It feels like it's going to be a bottle episode. And it's like, him saying that is very true to character, but it's then other people going, Arbed, we're not in a TV show. And then it cuts to the opening credits. And you're like, okay, that's clever. I just find it very interesting how they do it. It's breaking the fourth wall in a clever way. It's knowing the rules of what the fourth wall are and then playing off of them.
Well, it's
And it's very
creating a
meta.
character around, like, it's an interesting way of doing it, because like I said, the way that a lot of shows, TV, movies, whatever, when they do try and break the fourth wall, it is just directly addressing it. I don't actually think they ever do that in Community. I don't think there's ever a point where anyone looks at the camera, unless it's in like a documentary thing, or it's already established that it is a camera.
Yeah.
So like when Arbed's making the documentary, or when they do the Ken Burns style documentary thing with the blanket fort, I think those are the only times when it's actually directly people are either addressing the camera, or there's some sense that there's a presence there of a camera. But anytime that Abed does it, it's just his personality, or his mannerisms or personality, the way he talks, the things he says, is all relating to how he perceives the world, which is through the lens of a TV show, as if he was in it.
He's almost this the window into the show from the audience's perspective, right?
Yeah,
in a weird way, because he's so meta about it that him constantly talking about the show being a TV show is exactly how we view the show, except it, like Nathan said before, it's not properly breaking the fourth wall because he actively believes that it is a TV show, because of how his character works. It's so hard to explain.
Yeah. There's also an exception to Nathan's rule there, where the only time they look at a camera is where a camera is addressed.
Yeah.
The complete opposite happens, I believe, in one of the tags with the Troy and Abed in the morning. At which point, like, it's addressed. They're like looking down the actual camera to film the TV show, but there isn't a camera there because they're just doing a pretend TV show. And Jeff's like, there isn't even a camera here.
Yeah.
And they're like,
no, okay, that's a good point.
Yeah.
But that only happens a couple of times for that specific gag.
Yeah.
But it's funny because they're playing off of the rules that exist within television and storytelling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it still works. It's a bit less high concept and meta than perhaps Rick and Morty goes, another Dan Harmon show. But like, you can see those kind of popular culture is a big thing in Dan Harmon's writing, and you can see that through kind of most of his work, I find.
Yeah.
So
those two ones that I've seen.
So we'll finally just briefly cover Shirley, and then
can I just say my favorite Abed joke?
Go on.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's in the first season, and it's when he's making a film about his family, and he wants Jeff to be his dad, and he goes up to Jeff and he's like, Jeff's like, I don't want to be your father. It's like, great, you already know your lines.
It's so sad, but so funny.
Shirley is the character I wanted to talk about last, because I no disrespect at all, because I think she is a good character, but I think she might be the least interesting one of the study group.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say this before. It's weird because she plays the role. Yvette Nicole Brown plays the role so well, and she's funny. She's really, really funny, but it just feels like that character wasn't. I think it's just the weakest of them all, I think, unfortunately. Yeah. Like, even though Pierce was only in it for 3.5 seasons or something, and Shirley was in it for 5?
Yeah,
she's just not in the 6th season.
Yeah.
Even then, you're still like...
little bits.
You still feel like you're missing Pierce, even though it's like... But then I feel like in season 6, you don't really miss out from Shirley.
Yeah.
I feel like you don't have that same, like, oh, this quite pivotal, interesting, funny character has left. It's just like, oh, it was just Shirley, which is sad because she played it so well.
Yeah.
That could be why. It's just kind of someone you feel familiar with, comfortable with. She gets some decent storylines.
Yeah.
She doesn't get as many decent storylines, which I think is maybe why we don't miss her as much.
Yeah, but we'll always have tiny nipples.
We'll always have tiny nipples. We will. That's maybe one of her funnier things.
Yeah.
And it tends to be, her storylines tend to be quite serious. She's quite a serious character.
Yeah. She's all about her faith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which maybe is why you don't connect as well.
That's
as
true.
Much.
That's true.
Potentially. But even then, there are moments where that's played off, where her and Britta, I think, are really at odds. over religion, and they pick up a homeless guy or like a hitchhiker, and they're like, "What's your name?" It's Jesus, and he's
Jesus
like
Christ.
thinks that he's like the second coming of Jesus or something. So there are bits where she does, her beliefs come into play in the same way Pierce joins the cult. Those can only happen because that character exists, because there's that antagonism between the two. If he had just joined a cult, it's funny, but because you have someone who is who is religious, you can bounce that off and you can play that kind of one's a cult, one's a religion. Which is funnier, but the character in itself, I feel, isn't maybe not well developed. Isn't a good point to say, because I do think she had character development, but it just didn't feel like it was as integral to the story.
I think the point you touched on there is what I think is the main thing with Shirley. I think she's incredibly funny, but very rarely on her own. It's always her funniest moments when I think of Shirley are always bouncing off another character. When she goes into deep voice Shirley, those bits are the always but again, it's always bouncing off something someone else has said.
Yeah.
But what's interesting, I think, because I just wanted to talk about before we wrap up, what's interesting is all of those characters that didn't, you've got to remember, we adore this show, even the bad stuff, but all these characters that either went downhill towards the end and maybe started leaving and stuff were all there for the famous season 4, which is just when you think, everyone knows the worst season of Community, you would think it's the one where the best characters have started leaving. But it's not. They were all still there. And we all know why it's the worst one. But do you want to go into detail a little on that?
No.
Goodbye, everybody.
Welcome to the goodbye?
Yeah.
From the show?
Yeah.
Welcome to the show! I got one!
There we go.
We're doing a podcast.
I was going to do it, and I went,
baby.
no, I'll let him do it this week.
Thank you. I'll take it.
You stuttered and
it was
ruined
a shit
it.
one.
But
It was a shit one.
it was.
We're back.
I think you were just
So,
confused
podcast.
whether to say hello or goodbye.
So
It felt like an
Gaslight-
ending, so welcome to the show didn't feel right.
the gas leak year, boys.
So
The
stupid.
gas leak, yeah.
Nathan,
Harmon
I'll
got booted off his own show, basically.
yeah.
But they were like, but the show's good. Let's get other people to show run it. And they kind of fucked it.
Which
They
is
really
not a good
fucked it.
idea when you have someone like Dan Harmon, who, if anyone doesn't know, is quite famous for the story circle. Probably not invented it, but at least made it popular as a writing device. Essentially what it is it's just a circle. You divide it up into 8 quadrants, and each bit is a part of a story. You can't I should have left it there.
You pause
Essentially,
it.
what it is.
It's just a circle.
It's a circle. So anyway,
It's about story development, and it follows a
so
plot around a circle.
it's basically a way of creating a story and a way of creating a circular piece of development for a story. But the thing that he does is what I feel like people maybe fall down on when they read about it, which is definitely something that I did, but they only use it for a specific part, which is the plot. But you don't actually use it in that way. So the way that he does it is he does it for characters, he does it for scenes and moments, and it's basically creating like a positive, negative in either a scene or across multiple scenes or for a character's development, which is the way that stories work. You have just a normal thing, something happens, they do something, they return back to the way they were, but they've changed. That's essentially the way that the story circle works.
Equilibrium.
And when you take that away from the overarching part of the story, which is, for a TV show, it's series by series, and replace it with someone else, you've kind of lost. You're somewhere in the middle of it with some of these characters or part of the story.
Yeah.
And then you have to go and give it to these new people who have no idea what, they might have watched the show. They were probably fans of the show, I imagine, but you give it to people that don't know the ins and outs of where these characters were progressing.
From what I've read as well, I think they still tried to use the story circle method, but they're not Dan Harmon.
Well, you can tell
their story circle.
Because it's very much... The problem with Season 4 is it's just an imitation of what... It would be like if someone said to me, hey, can you take over making a season of Community? It's what I would make. Because, it's very... You would try and make this show based on what you know the show as. Whereas when the showrunner's doing it, he doesn't need to think about that because he made the show, right? So he's focusing on character development and heart and emotion in story around the chaos. Whereas in Season 4, they'd be like,
chaos!
Why don't we make them puppets? Why? Well, because they had the claymation episode last season. So that's
we
why.
Can do that.
So let's just do it because people like it. And then people didn't like it.
I didn't mind it. It was just a
no.
It's quite funny when you say that because like when you actually, I might be different for you guys. When you watch it, you don't necessarily go, "This is bad."
Oh no, it's not bad.
It's just different.
But
it
I mean,
feels
as in,
different, and you don't know why.
Yeah, but you kind of like you still enjoy it because you've just sat through 3 seasons of really, really good TV.
Yeah,
and it might just like it's not the fact that it's like Game of Thrones season 9 bad, right? It's like it's just not what you expect Community to be, especially rewatching it. There are moments that it has which are funny, but like you said, Max, like it's not got that whole overarching story and character development and the heart behind it. It's just got kind of funny moments because at the end of the day, they're comedy writers.
And they try it in moments though. For example, Abed and Brie Larson's character that was introduced in Season 4. That was a really cool emotional moment that could have been something really interesting, but then they just drop it. The same for the episode in Season 4 where Jeff and Pierce share the barber shop and they sort of have this father-son bonding thing. I think that's one of my favourite Community moments.
It's really nice.
Because it's just it feels so earned, right?
Yeah.
That relationship between those two. And it would have been so good. And then they just drop it. Like the next episode, they just go back to...
And I think crazy. That's potentially the problem that they had. I mean, there was probably talks in the background of Dan Harmon probably coming back at some point. And I don't think they probably didn't think they were going to be showrunners for the rest of the runtime of Community. So they perhaps felt like we can't go too hard on character development and change these characters in a way that maybe we can't go back from. Which is like what you said. If you are given something as a fan, you can't really change the characters too much from what they are, because if you do that, you've got to rewrite the entire what you know of the show, basically.
Yeah.
So, like, obviously they want to go back to a comfortable point where they're like, I know what this character is, so we can't change it too much, because otherwise we have to rethink the whole structure of how this character's going to interact with everyone, or, like, how they're going to come off on screen. So I understand why they did it, but it's just, like, it makes for not bad TV, but pretty mediocre TV.
Yeah, it's just a shame, isn't it? Because it's like I've said a few times, it's one of the things that makes Community so good, aside from Dan Harmon's writing, is that cast and the bunch of characters, and they are so good that they carry Season 4. But if that was any other show, there's a lot of filler in that season.
If that was the Season 6 cast.
Yeah.
It could have been very different. Yeah.
So we might as well finish it up, because we've gone on a brief negative. I was going to say,
I have a question for you guys.
Okay, cool.
Potentially to wrap things up. What is your favourite side character?
Annie's boobs.
Context.
The monkey.
Without context, that sounds weird.
It just sounds misogynistic.
Yeah, it does.
It's a monkey, by the way, for those listening.
That Troy named Annie's boobs.
That is a tough one.
Favorite side character.
I don't want to say magnitude, but I think I might.
Pop.
Me and my friend Tom, he hates magnitude so
Really?
much. Yeah, like what's that about? So whenever it comes up, we always just go like pop around it, and he gets like really annoyed. But I'm like, come on, it's worth it for the joke that Donald Glover gets to tell when magnitude, dies in paintball, and he goes, "Pop what magnitude? Pop what?"
I also like when he's trying to think of his, like, you get the flashback origin thing of like where it comes from. He's at a party and like 2 balloons pop next to him.
Yeah,
And he goes, pop. Like, it's so stupid. He didn't need an origin.
It's the guy from Harry Potter as well, though. That's the weird thing. Yeah. It blows my mind every time.
Yeah, I always forget that he's British
as
well. So you think magnitude, Nathan? What about you?
I don't know. Maybe. There's a lot of good ones.
Yeah.
I mean,
Leonard.
I think. Yeah, I was gonna say Leonard.
Oh, Leonard's so good.
And there's pizza reviews, like that tag where he's doing like the review or like crisps or something.
Yeah.
It's just it's so
Feeling hard
funny.
as hell, and you're about to get shot.
Yeah.
It's so dumb.
I like
Leonard's
it at
good.
the end of the Blanket Fort documentary episode where it's all photos, and it's a Facebook post, and the episode just ends on Leonard likes this.
Yeah.
So stupid. So you think maybe Leonard? So we've got magnitude, Leonard.
I mean, John Oliver's character. What?
Yeah, that's my choice.
Professor.
That's
I
my
don't know.
choice.
Booyah. He just disappeared as well.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of got busy, didn't he?
Yeah. Being successful. To
To be fair, I might just be biased because I love John Oliver.
Side character. I like. Oh,
Starburns?
I don't know. No.
No.
Or maybe
not
maybe instead of side character, maybe like a memorable character that's only in it for like 1 episode or something.
Shit. I'm really struggling here. I'm trying to think of all the different
He's not good
characters
under
there
pressure.
Under pressure. I don't know.
Nathan?
Chang is funny, but I wouldn't consider him a side character. He starts off
No.
a side character, as Teacher Chang.
Yeah. Senor.
Senor Chang.
I thought it was funny when they brought in the Moby impersonator,
Yeah.
to replace the Dean who looks like Moby,
Yeah.
which is actually addressed in season 1. It's like, hey, that guy kind of looks like Moby, which I thought was funny. Kind of watching back it again.
Mm.
Who's your
I don't know.
favourite side character, Nathan?
He said it.
Did he?
Well, no, we're just talking about. I do think Leonard is probably
Leonard's really funny.
just there where it's like
Vicky.
What's the one where they're in
Vicky is a good one.
Garrett. I thought we said
Garrett.
Did we
Yeah,
though?
Garrett's probably the best one.
my favorite Garrett moment is when all the frisbees from the roof cave in, and it's Leonard had thrown the first one up there, and then when they all cave in, Leonard picks up this frisbee from like 1970 odd and has a flashback where he's just the same but with long hair.
Yeah.
And then it's something like he goes, "Cowabunga, dude!" but then he picks it back up, and this frisbees in the modern day have then crushed Garrett, who's like sat on top of them all. And then Leonard just goes, "Cowabunga, dude," as a flashback moment. And then it just cuts to Garrett sat on a bunch of frisbees, and he's like, "What?" But it's like completely out of character for him. That it makes me laugh every time.
And
You were born in the dark. You will stay in the dark. In the dirt. In the dirt.
Is it the UN bit where it's like crisis alert?
Yes. Yeah. Okay, Garrett's probably my favorite side character.
Yeah.
Garrett's a great shot.
On that note,
Well,
Yeah.
we'll finish it off on a little tiny thing of. I think we were talking about what makes Community so good is it's got this emotional core running through it, and it's so goofy and high concept and ridiculous and well written, but at the same time it's such an easy show to love because it's got this heart to it that not many shows have. So you can tune in at any random episode and just be like comfortable. That's the word I would use whenever I'm watching it. Even if I'm like
a comfort show.
Yeah.
You always have a comfort show that you just watch
I would
on a day
agree.
You feel down.
Yeah.
And you just want to put something on to have on.
Just brings you joy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But then in the not to go too negative, and the reason it was cancelled so much is that was the problem. It was you couldn't as a first time viewer, you have to watch it from the start.
Yeah.
Because it's not comfortable the first time you watch it. If you jump into like season 3, because there's so many in jokes, there's so much like character development that has to go on to understand it, and it's just weird as well, which is what makes it so great. But the reason it kept getting cancelled is because they were like, people can't just jump into this. They can't just enjoy it. It's not like Friends where you can just watch any random episode. You kind of understand what's going on. It's just too reliant on the series as a whole, which isn't a problem when it's on Netflix and you can binge watch it until 5 o'clock in the morning, like I did some days.
Yeah.
But as a TV show, when you have a week between each episode, it doesn't always work.
Yeah.
But now that it's on Netflix, doesn't matter.
And I'm sorry to end this on a pun, but I think the thing that I really love about it is that fans of the show and having friends that are fans of the show, you are very much a community.
Get out!
No.
Fuck off!
No. You are a community because, like you say, you need to have watched all of it and you need to just totally get it to be a fan of it. I think you could like it if you just got into moments of it. Alex does this stuff to the camera like I can't see him just calling me a wanker.
For the audio listeners.
yeah, for those listening. I was gesturing that he was a wanker.
It's the best show to have friends that watch it as well, because we've known each other a long time now, and we have talked about Community for the entire time we've been friends, and it doesn't get bored. Like, we've just done an hour and a half of talking about Community, and we're still going to keep talking about Community every day in the future, you know? Yeah. And that's rare. That's special.
And I think we all know, we've watched enough TV to know that popping the back of a raft makes it go faster.
So, that was our Community episodes.
Episode 10.
And if I can just say, this episode was awesome, but also it wasn't. I'm so sorry. Yeah. So next week, I believe we're doing Game of Thrones. Because we had such fun talking about it last week that we all went, oh my god, we have to talk about Game of Thrones. So we've bumped that up the list and we're gonna talk about that. Hopefully a little less waffly than this one. But you know, this was an episode on Community. It's only fair that we made it chaotic and ridiculous. So it'll be a fun one to edit, I'm sure. But yeah, if you enjoyed it, give us a like, give us a subscribe, you know, all that jazz. Follow us on Spotify and Instagram and, you know, social media. It's 2021. Do I need to plug everything? Just follow us. We deserve it. Come on.
Yeah.
And
you
also,
just listen to this,
the one guy who keeps disliking all these, leave us alone.
No, keep doing it. We like it.
But really, it
Leonard
hurts.
likes this. Just one person every week.